no helicopters have been procured for me to go to golf course. Thank you.
I've never said he wasn't a great politician. I'm just saying he's a officer.
It's supposed to be an interview.
How'd you play out there today?
Well, I found the conditions challenging, mostly because there's no grass on the golf course, but there never has been.
I'm thinking about the swag bag, and I have high hopes for the swag bag.
Trash. When you got 3 crevices on the green, your course is trash.
What's happening, folks? Welcome back. Beltway Golfer Podcast, episode 40. Alex Dixon here. This episode, Ian Gilly, Sugarloaf Social Club. Excited to have him on. We've been talking about it for a little while, and Ian and Sugarloaf Social Club and his co-founder Harrison Lewis, they don't do much media, as he talks about. But I was excited that Ian was down to come on his local hometown podcast, Beltway Golfer. He's been a resident for several years now and plays a lot of the courses around here at DMV. If you are not on Instagram, you can be forgiven for maybe not knowing who Sugarloaf Social Club is. While they have expanded well beyond the world of Instagram and social media, that is where they really fostered their following and global fan base, which waits for their drops of different hats and shirts and golf bags and all sorts of different branded gear related to the sport. But they also have this creative side of the house where they create logos, scorecards, do different creative work for some of the largest golf properties on the planet. Augusta National, Pebble Beach, Pinehurst have all tracked down Ian and Harrison from Sugarloaf Social Club to do work for them. So pretty impressive also that they've done this in a short period of time. And I use that word impressive. When I was listening to the conversation and editing this, I noticed I used that word several times, and it comes off like I'm a fan, and the reality is I am, because what they've done is remarkable. Really growing this through Instagram and gaining such a following. So guilty as charged. If this is the first time you're listening to this podcast, as I imagine there will be several who track this down because they're fans of Sugarloaf. Quick overview of what this podcast is all about. Pretty self-explanatory. Beltway Golfer, interview style, conversational podcast. I've had everyone from golf course architects to superintendents to caddies to PGA teaching professionals to other members of the media, golf course owners, anyone connected to the Washington, D.C. area golf scene or stretching out into the Mid-Atlantic. Last episode even had former PGA Tour Commissioner Dean Beeman, who is a native of Montgomery County, Maryland, in the D.C. area, on the show. So after you listen to this, please check out some of the other podcasts. I'd appreciate it. If you want to watch the video, if you want to watch the conversation, me and Ian sit down at the East Potomac Mini Golf Course. You can check out the YouTube page, Beltway Golfer. You can watch the entire video there as well. Before we get to the episode, one piece of personal news I'd love to share because it's pretty cool, and it happened since the last recording. The Mid-Atlantic section of the PGA, the MAPGA, they hand out annual awards. They hand out like 12 or 13 annual awards, mostly to PGA pros, PGA Teaching Professional of the Year, that sort of thing, Coach of the Year. But a couple of them they refer to as civilian awards. One of them is the Earl Helen Sports Media Award. They've been giving it out for 20, 30 years, and this year they gave it to your boy, Alex Dixon, Beltway Golfer. Pretty cool. Came out of nowhere. Excited about it. Thought I'd share. I get to go to a banquet in February, and I don't know what happens there, but that's where they hand out all the awards to all the PGA pros, and it sounds like it'll just be a party. So I'm excited. I'm honored. Wanted to share it with the listeners. That's it. Here it is. Episode 40, Beltway Golfer Podcast. Ian Gilly, Sugarloaf Social Club. Enjoy. Ian Gilly, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Fantastic. We are out at the course formerly known as East Potomac Park, now East Potomac Golf Links.
Yep.
We are sitting here in front of the historic East Potomac Mini Golf Course. This is a place you know very well.
Oh yeah, definitely. I moved to DC after college in 2011. Worked on Capitol Hill, and this was my home. Like, this was my golf course. I lived in Foggy Bottom. Didn't have a car, so I would bike over or metro and get an Uber. And this is kind of where some of my, tastes and ethos of golf started to change. I grew up a country club kid in Chicago, on the south side of Flossmoor Country Club. Lived in Florida for a little bit in high school, went to college in Florida, played college golf, went to the University of Edinburgh in Scotland, played college golf over there as well. So I kind of had this like country club background, then like a tournament background, but then, after college, real world airdropped into a city where you're making nothing on Capitol Hill, poor as can be, but you still want to golf. And so I had to figure out a way, like, what's the closest course? Okay, it was here.
Sure.
It's affordable. Wow, even better. Like there's an awesome culture and community here. Found some guys on Capitol Hill to golf with, getting beers, hitting balls after work. So playing 9-4-9 and yeah.
So I exist mostly on Instagram of any social media channels. So and so do you. So most people listening to this know who you are. However, there are going to be some people that maybe are not on Instagram listening to this that don't know who is Ian Gilly and what's he doing on this podcast, aside from a guy that used to work on the Hill and is really into affordable, interesting golf. You are the co-founder of the Sugarloaf Social Club.
Yep.
So for those that have absolutely no idea what Sugarloaf Social Club is, how would you describe it?
Yeah, let's, do we have time for a longer story here?
Please.
Take it back to 2011, graduating college, last few months in school. I'm playing, live with my teammates, playing a lot of golf. We're out of this course called Sugarloaf Mountain, a core crunch course like 30 minutes from our campus in Orlando. We're getting kind of like emotional. Like it's, we're leaving each other, after these great few years together, nerding out about golf every night and every day. And I've always been one to kind of like throw an umbrella term on something and then we'll figure it out later. So, I was going to really miss these guys after college. And I was like staying on the 16th hole at Sugarloaf Mountain. I was like, why don't we call ourselves Sugarloaf Social Club? It'll give us sort of an incentive to stick together after college, keep talking, we'll create a Facebook group and a group chat, text message chain. And, I was really inspired by bands like Bombay Bicycle Club and Tokyo Police Club. And so I was like, let's just call ourselves Sugarloaf Social Club. And so that was me and my two roommates, Jake Lambert and Peter Corbakis. And we all kind of went our separate ways after college. But we had this like umbrella to keep us motivated to stay together. So, the idea was, it's just a friend group really. And we're kind of collecting new people to add to this fold, in each of our new cities. So, Jake's meeting some new friends and Peter, has some new buddies in Chicago. And so it turns into this like 12, 20 person group after a few years. One of those guys was
a 12 or 20 person group doing what? Just exchanging emails?
We're literally a private message board on Facebook, and we go on one golf trip a year, and there's like a big text
message. And are you just talking golf, or are you talking all kinds of stuff?
This is mostly just golf, hot takes. I mean, this is like pre-Instagram. This is from like 2011 to 2013. But on the Hill, I meet Harrison, and we become good friends. And long story short, he's ultimately the guy who we start the formal business structure of Sugarloaf Social Club. But back to like 2013, 2014, I actually leave Capitol Hill and go work for Billy Casper Golf's marketing arm, Buffalo Communications. Spend a few years there. So have this big golf nerd, have this golf group. Now I'm kind of working in the golf industry, connecting with media. Kind of getting a taste of like the inside, a lot of, brands coming through Buffalo and learning how to like launch brands and keep brands going. And I always wanted to work in branding. Like that was my passion. After a few years of that, I have an opportunity to come back to Capitol Hill to be the communications director for the same congressman. And Harrison was the chief of staff, and our boss tells us in 2016 that he's retiring. Pretty common. There's a lot of turnover on Capitol Hill. It's hard to stay up there forever. But Harrison and I, we look at each other and we're like, we can either find new jobs on Capitol Hill, not a problem, super stable positions, pays all right, or let's like moonshot this. Like I was doing some freelance work for Holderson Bourne when I was working on the Hill. I had this Instagram account that was already churning and becoming pretty popular.
That was the Sugarloaf Social Club.
That was the Sugarloaf Social Club. We started that probably in 2014. I saw this Instagram thing like I mean, people like back then it was just like another random social.
I think you started even earlier than that.
It was like we were probably one of the first golf accounts on Instagram. I was like, golf is a visual medium. People collect, photos from the courses they go to, like Pokemon cards. This is going to be a huge deal.
Well, because it's funny is you and I have never played golf.
No.
Ever.
Yeah.
However, I think we both kind of started on Instagram about the same time. Like,
We were early buddies.
I think my first social media thing for Beltway Golfer may have been Tumblr. It was before Instagram, and it was awful. But the only reason I remember that is not long ago. I was looking through like old messages on Instagram, and you had messaged. I think I wrote one piece for Golf WRX years and years ago, and you messaged me when you were at Buffalo Group, basically saying, hey, if you ever need, an introduction to some of these brands, this is who I am. And it was right around that time that you started to get heavy into the Sugarloaf Instagram stuff. So I think it was all about that same time.
Yeah, I remember because it was it was the Wild West basically, and it was really much easier to find, because it was such a smaller Instagram world back then. I don't know, I'm living in DC and you're in DC, and I'm seeing you go to all these cool courses in the area. So I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And Buffalo at that time, they didn't first of all they didn't understand what I was trying to do with Sugarloaf. They didn't understand and I didn't even really know, but I knew it was something with potential, and I knew that social media was going to be a huge part of golf marketing.
Were you trying to introduce it to the people at Buffalo? Like, hey, I have something here. This is something we should take a look at.
Yeah, maybe I had 10,000 followers or something when I was at Buffalo, and I just was trying to convince them that this was a powerful medium. This is probably we should be looking at terrible word, but influencers or people who have strong communities on social media who can we can connect brands with. And it was just early days. Didn't really totally understand that. So and there's a lot of people around me didn't really understand what Sugarloaf was. So and it was kind of an evolving project. But once I came back to Capitol Hill that second time with Harrison, and we knew we had something that was snowballing, that had strong following. We were wondering, how can we take that magic and sort of help other brands? So that's when we formalized the business.
Why was it what were you doing that was making it snowball? I remember
Yeah.
there was pictures and really well written kind of captions on thoughts on golf, but do you remember anything specific?
Yeah, so I like anyone in golf, we love logos, and any great club has a cool logo for themselves. And so once we created the Sugarloaf logo, and we basically had 20 guys in the club, and minimum order on hats are 36, let's say. So we have a dozen extra caps that we don't know what to do with, and we have other people hey, that's cool, can I buy that? And so we were this is 2014 or 2015, just having people PayPal us for the hat. And then I was go to the post office, and I was we have to formalize this somehow, because we started getting more merch for ourselves and extras. And so once we created a website and made it a real thing and had an official shipping software, and that's when it just started to snowball. And we had such small quantities, right? So they would kind of sell out pretty quick. So then that sort of was a self-fulfilling prophecy, basically.
I think right there is kind of where the lesson is, where it's truly organic. You didn't set out to make it a brand.
Yeah.
You were literally just buying and making cool hats for your circle of friends and posting pictures of them. People are I want that.
We had a brand, we had the luxury of having a brand build for years, basically, before we had anything to sell, and so there's no, I think Sugarloaf has a great deal of loyalty from everyone who buys a hat or likes a post, and I think they believe we're honest, and the organic growth, the slow and organic growth, has kind of always been our our motto, and yeah, it's incredible. And
so when you transition to the business, it's essentially you and Harrison, or are there others involved?
It's me and Harrison. So we set up an LLC called Sugarloaf Creative Lab. I remember sitting on the 4th floor of Longworth Building at Capitol Hill, and he bought a drone, I bought a camera. we're going to call ourselves Sugarloaf Creative Lab, and we're going to go, the first order of business was to go down to Tobacco Road to like film drone videos for their, for their website, basically. Drones had just come out on the scene. So like, all right, we're going to be like a golf video company. And then we go to
Did Tobacco Road hire you to do that?
Yeah, they let us come out there as sort of like a proof of concept. Or like, hey, can we have like carte blanche out there, and we'll give you these assets in return. And that's Harrison.
Yeah, it sounds like a no-brainer now in 2021, but 2014 there weren't a lot of people doing that.
Yeah, no, not a lot of, like, drones had like just come out basically.
Yeah.
And then we went to the PGA show in January 2017. Now we're actually out of a job. Like, the Congress has ended. We are totally on our own. We have this like tiny like merchandise operation, but we're really trying to diversify, the income, and we're brand guys. We help congressmen get reelected, and we are kind of the jack of all trades on the Hill from a communication standpoint. So I've got some golf chops. Like, let's try to put that recipe and go find some cool clients we believe in. Holderness and Bourne was with us from day one. Love those guys. We picked up a women's golf line called Hedge, right there at the PGA show. And that's when we're like, all right, we're off and running. Like this might actually work. So
the concept of the business, when you and Harrison sat down and said, okay, like, did you guys come up with a business plan and kind of lay it all out? And I guess what a lot of people I would think, because I think I'm one of them, was that it was about gear, swag, putting other hats and shirts and stuff like that. But that's just half the component. The other half being doing this for other brands.
Yeah, the Creative Lab it's basically like a brand consulting, like everything that is underneath. Like, hey, we need help with our brands. Like, we can come in and give you advice on that, or make a new logo for you, or connect you with the right people. Figure out production issues and product planning. And so, yeah, that's something we don't talk about the Creative Lab.
Was the Sugarloaf Instagram account essentially your portfolio?
Yeah, so that was the very public facing, like, look what we can do, look, this is the.
But, I mean, you guys are fresh out of college. You go to Holderness and Bourne, or you go to the Hedge company, and you say we can fix your branding and help you with PR. And they're like, who the heck are you?
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's a ton of leap of faith that went on. I mean, I think we had two things going for us. One, I had I could speak the lingo. I've been a golf nerd my whole life. Two, we had this early to market Instagram account that was bigger than a lot of other bigger brands at the time. I remember having more followers than like Golf Digest for a long time. I was like, wow, this is incredible. And three, like, having the golf marketing background plus the Capitol Hill stuff. I mean, that's, we're 26, 27. Harrison's maybe 30 at the time. People trusted us, and it's remarkable. Like, looking back on that, like, we weren't ever like dishonest about our abilities or what we could offer, but this was new to us. Like, we didn't really know totally what we were doing. And then, you do, one thing leads to another, and then all of a sudden, like, Pinehurst is calling, and Pebble Beach, and PJ National, and Mackenzie Golf Bags, and, clubs like Saratoga Golf and Polo need a new logo. So, like, it's just been an incredible ride. And, like, we really try to stay, it's not about us. Like, we're very, like, behind the scenes kind of guys. Sure. Like, we want the brands to speak for themselves, not these two random people who are kind of helping behind the scenes.
Yeah. Let me ask you about one thing that I think a lot of people think about when they think Sugarloaf is you've got kind of an iconic logo of your own. The kind of the angular SSC with the arrow going through it, and that seemed to be a part of what Sugarloaf was as a brand from the very beginning. Where did that come from? Who designed it? Was it you?
Yeah, so I actually still have like the post-it notes of the scribble. So I'm at Buffalo at the time. Like, Sugarloaf has existed for many years, but we haven't had like a logo, like a real, solid logo. And I have this, from being on Capitol Hill and giving tons of Capitol tours. there was this one bit of iconography in the old House of Reps room that's like these like sticks that are bound by I think bound by a snake, and like the concept is like on their own these little sticks are kind of loose and fragile and can't hold up anything, but when they're bound together, this is something strong. It's a pillar, and it can support, you know, granite building. And so I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. Like, you know, there's these people who are into Sugarloaf and in the club, and like when we're together, like it's a strong thing. And I was, you know, the logo was like, okay, how are we gonna get? I love arrows. And I was like, how, like, you know, the arrowhead is like the 3 founders, and the feathers are like the other original 10 guys. And like the SSC was like a snake, like binding like this arrow basically. And, you know, through a few iterations, it got broken out to what it is today. And the guy sitting next to me at Buffalo, I gave him I didn't know Illustrator from, you know, the guy across the road. Like it was, I didn't know how to turn a sketch that I had into like a digital asset. And the guy sitting next to me at Buffalo was a graphic designer, and was really good with Illustrator. So I showed him my sketches, paid him a 6-pack, and then he gave this logo to us. And now, like, I'm super proficient in Illustrator and design logos all the time. But then, like, it was just kind of this happenstance moment where I had an idea. I just need someone to, like, do it on the computer for me.
Well, that's what's wild. And I have a feeling this conversation, we're going to be jumping back and forth on the timeline a lot, but that's fine. Because what I think is impressive about that in itself is, you know, you just mentioned, okay, Pinehurst is calling and Pebble Beach is calling. You've been doing, you know, logos for some of the biggest golf properties in the country. I mean, arguably on the planet. I mean, Pebble Beach, it's just Tiger Woods designed par 3 course to hay, and you designed the logo for it. And so going back to this design of the SSC, did you have any kind? Did you study graphic design? Do you have any artistic background whatsoever? Or you just kind of, you know, figured this all out on the fly?
I was always a creative kid. I just like shamelessly like love brands. Like I love logos. And you know, that like growing up might have been like a materialistic sort of statement, but like I definitely like own that now. Like I fucking love brands. And so I think just kind of absorbing like what made like Mark's like why does the Ralph Lauren pony work so well, or like those things just sort of like stuck in my head, I think, as a kid. And like, why are people so obsessed and almost treat brands like they're you know, football team or something? And yeah, I had no formal training, nothing. And so Illustrator, like, fast forward to like work now, there's a lot of collaboration that happens, but like I'm in Illustrator every day, and that's basically the main software to like build logos. But yeah, so kind of just self-taught, I guess.
It's really impressive. And so the dynamic between you and Harrison, you know, are you more the designer? Like, what do you have certain roles, or you guys kind of do a little bit of everything?
Definitely. So Harrison, he's very much like, he's a great foil to my, like, let's do this, let's do that. Like, I think every crazy creative person needs someone to be like, no, or yes, or sort of like can steer you in the right direction. He's our like business development guy. He's the guy who can write the contracts, knows our value, you know, asks for the numbers, keeps things on track. Brilliant writer. And I'm kind of tasked with more the sort of like crazy ethereal, like come up with the wild ideas. And, you know, where we work super well together is like once a project gets started and we have that kind of that first brainstorm session, like those go on for hours, days almost, about like particular logo or finding some piece of iconography that's going to make sense for this brand. We just work really well together. Yeah.
The wild thing about your story and why this is so interesting and why I'm so excited and grateful that you're coming on the podcast here, but I shared this story with you before we started taping, but I'll share it for the audience. I reached out to through a different anecdote of me talking with Michael McCartan, one of the founders of National Links Trust, and I told him that I was going to have you on, and he kind of he goes pretty far back with you, and he mentioned two things. One, he told us an interesting story about how you met, but what he wanted to stress was how fascinating it was that so many people, every Tom, Dick, and Harry who's into golf, who is either going through a midlife crisis, or maybe they're younger, maybe they just hate their jobs, but would die to be in the golf industry, or try to figure out a way to be in the golf industry. I know that's been the case for me for many years. But to actually create a career in the golf industry is a successful one is incredibly hard. And what Mike said was, what's incredible about Ian's story and the Sugarloaf Social Club story is that they were able to do it and have become really successful, but almost out of sheer enthusiasm for the game and all the different components of it.
Yeah, that's very kind of him. I mean, it's like we are stupid passionate about this stuff. Like all I ever wanted to do was to help brands and have my own brand. So this is my dream. You know, I'm getting to.
But if you go on Instagram,
yeah,
I mean,
literally
every time I open up Instagram,
there's a new
where they give
brand.
you like the suggested follows, or maybe it's a sponsored follow. And you know, there's golf brands that are probably guys with kind of similar similar origin stories to you. There's thousands, and there's you can probably count on one hand, if that, with stories that are replicable to what you guys have been able to pull off.
You're right. Every day, there's a new golf brand that pops up that's like, we're cool, vintage, lifestyle, throwback, or streetwear, but it's golf, and like wear it to the bar and the club, and you know, it's a mood board with 90s photos, and like, yeah, every day those pop up, and I do. There's some really sophisticated ones that seem to have a crazy creative appeal behind them, and there's others that are more just like passion sort of side hustles. You know, I think where we were successful, you know, we had this following for years. We built this brand before we even like had a brand, basically. So that's almost irreplicable unless you want to spend, you know, years and years and years, really early on in Instagram, like creating a persona, and then you can kind of transition into, you know, direct to consumer gear. I think the other thing is just like we're conservative and diligent in the way like we do business. Like, you know, if you think you can sell 48 hats, actually get 36, because you don't want to be sitting on that inventory. Is just money that's gonna not let you participate in like the next purchase of 36 more hats. So, you know, being very careful about the economics of it all. You know, people are like, well, what? I can't get your stuff. Like, it's always sold out. And like, yes, that's a cool byproduct, I guess, of sort of the system we're running. But it's really about, one, if someone's buying something from us that has a Sugarloaf logo, like I want them to feel like that thing like has value. Like they spend their hard-earned money on like a Sugarloaf thing, like that should like carry it like some weighty intrinsic value. And two, like if we are stuck with a, you know, 20 extra hats, like we can't move forward out of that hole. So
I want to have a few questions and talk about, you know, the whole, you know, the merch shop and the swag and the drops and all that. But to close the loop on just where you know, how you guys transitioned and made it, you know, I didn't want to make it sound like you guys were just kind of first out and you know, first on the scene, and that's why you made it. One of the pieces, or one of the reasons I brought up the conversation I had with Mike McCartan was, I think the story of how you guys met is relevant in the fact that what he said was, before you guys had ever met, you know, he had written the thesis on the history of East Potomac Park and what it could be, comparing it to St. Andrews and others as part of the community. I think the timeline that he said, and maybe correct me, was, you know, you're still relatively early to DC, but as he tells it, you reached out to Tom Doak about East Potomac, like
Yep.
making sure East Potomac was on his radar. And he said something along the lines of, you need to get in touch with Mike McCartan. He's a DC guy. And before the two of you were able to connect, maybe in person,
Yep.
you happened to run into each other walking to a restaurant on 14th Street here in DC, where you stopped him, not knowing who he was, but because he was wearing a hat that was the logo for Streamsong, and Streamsong wasn't even open yet. And if you hear Mike McCartan tell it, he'd tell you, he's like, nobody knew who Streamsong or what Streamsong was at that time. And so my point being is, A, you had the initiative to reach out to Tom Doak.
Yep.
And B, 99% of people aren't going to be able to stop Mike McCartan walking to that restaurant. And from there, you guys developed this relationship, helping, visiting him down at Schoolhouse 9.
It's crazy serendipitous. And that was like, you're right. I mean, when I'd reached out to Tom Doak, because just to go back a little bit, like Harris and I, we're on Capitol Hill. We're obsessed. He honestly started golf like in 2011. Like he's like new to the game. He learned to play here. And we just become obsessed with like this property. And like we have a ton of access to resources up there, and we're like, looking through the Library of Congress, like what they've got on East Potomac, and we're just getting super hyped about it. And we find this old aerial that you've seen from like the 20s where it's like tons of principal nose bunkers, and we're like, what? This place used to like be insane, and there used to be reversible, and like we couldn't believe it. And yeah, reached out to Tom Doak, actually about here and Culver Academies, which was my other like great love in golf life, and to see if he wanted to like come down and look at that place for possible restoration. But yeah, he's like, hey, this guy who works for me lives in DC, like you should connect with him. And like before I did that, you're right, like I run into Mike McCartan with my wife at Matchbox on 14th Street, and Streamsong is probably just a pile of dirt at that point. I don't know how I even like had seen the logo somewhere on some message board. But yeah, it was just like crazy coincidence,
Sure.
and that kind of kicked off a lifelong friendship.
Yeah, well, I think the point of the story was all you make your own luck. You got to know what you're looking for.
I believe in manifest
Absolutely.
destiny, honestly.
Sure.
Like that's what's up.
Absolutely. So Sugarloaf, for those that don't know, you guys have seemingly, I mean, obviously I don't know the numbers, but seemingly you guys have a wildly successful kind of merch business going.
Yep.
I think a lot of the people that are listening to this that do know you are, who you are and have been following you have probably bought a lot of your stuff or failed in buying your stuff because it sells out so fast. You talked a bit about buying less than you need and that sort of thing. But what I find impressive about what you guys do, having I tried to get into the merch game a little bit. I still at beltwaygolfer.com. You still buy good things.
I bought some stickers from you.
You did. But what I found, I came up with a couple shirts, and what I found is it's hard.
Yeah,
it's
a terrible business.
Not only is it hard to come up with something good. It's hard to sell it. It's hard, you think you maybe had a good idea, and you realize that was actually a terrible idea. And what you guys do is you guys come up with, it rarely is the same thing twice.
Right. We've really never repeated a product. Maybe we've ordered it again just because, but you're right. Like if there's an archives page on our website hidden at the bottom with like all the old gear, so you can see, I don't know how many like hundreds of things we've done, but I mean, basically, we only make stuff that we want. It's like, well, my white hat is yellow. I need a new white hat. Like then we'll go do a white hat. And so that's sort of like, you hear that from like kind of successful like creators all the time. Like if you just kind of make things that you think are interesting or you think are cool or you want to wear, good chances are like other people will bite on as well. I honestly, like, as crazy as this ride has been, the growth we've seen, like I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface with what I want to do. So I'm really excited for next year, honestly.
The way you guys sell your merchandise and sell it fast, and I can tell just as an outside observer how loyal your fan base is, how they engage with your accounts on social media. You've got You've got accounts on social media that are just like fans of your clothing.
Yeah.
If you look at Sugarloaf Social Club on eBay, you know, there's tons of listings, people reselling your stuff. I would imagine that some of the larger brands in the golf world and otherwise are paying attention.
I think so. It's been a success. I would say it's not the best business to be in if you're looking to like get rich, basically.
Sure.
Like it's so, you know, luckily we've had this creative lab side of you know the business that we work for clients, and that helps like buoy sort of the stress, I guess, that's on like the merchandise side of things. But yeah, I mean, you know, early on we did a thing with Callaway, and we did a really cool collection with Penguin, and like big brands are latching on to these kind of smaller, upstart, cool golf brands like Manners, which is a brand in the UK. They did an awesome collaboration with Golf recently. Eastside Golf, they just did a shoe with Jordan. Like it's crazy. Like, and that's why it's not like I think we feel confident we could go into Nike or any room and be like, let's do something cool. And like it's been fun, honestly, to work with big brands on cool collabs.
You being you talked about how you're just really into brands.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons you guys have been so successful and somewhere like Eastside and other things is it's not just, okay, here's some cool clothing.
Right.
Let's just drop it.
Yeah.
You know, and people are obsessed. Like, it's not that easy. One of the reasons you guys have been so successful, clearly, is you guys have created, I don't know if vibe is the right word, but something that, you know, you probably have a better word for it. But, you know, whether it be through what you're posting on social media, you know, what you're writing about it, the message that you're getting across, but also some of the other things like the hidden gem map.
Yep.
And the properties and people and things within the golf world that you're shining a light on.
Yeah, the merch is just like this happy accident that goes along with what we really love, which are finding cool golf courses, which kind of fall under like our hidden gem umbrella. And that concept seems to really resonate with people. And really at like the heart of it, and I mean, even goes to like why we love East Potomac so much. You know, we felt that, you know, early on with Instagram, there was a lot of emphasis on like top 100 courses and golf porn and, you know, have you playing all these fancy places, and like, we're just a young kid who can only afford to play this place. Like, let's find out like why East Potomac is so cool. Yeah. And it's got, you know, golden age architecture history, reversible, like it's a national park. It's got this incredible egalitarian fabric to the community here. And helping people feel empowered to love their like local dirt patch as much as, say, going to Pinehurst No. 2 or National Golf Links, like making people proud of their like community courses, and then feeling empowered to like, well, maybe there are other, you know, munis or little par 3 courses like within my area that I should go check out. And so, you know, I think what we've done a good job at is like empowering people to like be comfortable with who they are and not sort of be a sheep to what someone else is saying is good. You know, go find something you're proud of that, you know, that other people don't necessarily see. So I think we've been able to kind of shed light on, you know, kind of underrepresented cool spots, and that trend is definitely like caught on.
Sure. You must get people sending you courses all the time.
I do. Yeah. You know, before it makes on a list, like definitely have either me, I haven't played all those courses, or some of the other guys in Sugarloaf will be like, this needs to go on there basically for these reasons. And yeah, it's people send us hidden gem suggestions all the time. And, you know, if I can kind of validate that it's cool between a few other people, like, we'll throw it on there. And that map has been awesome. I mean, I remember Eric Anders Lang was like telling me he was using that to like plan his trip. So it's definitely proliferated into, into resource that others use.
Is there pressure to I don't know, are you ever contacted by courses themselves?
No, actually, that's never happened. I mean, I think these places, most of them are just, they're kind of either stuck in a time warp or so off the map where it's not even on their radar. Like, and like when we go to courses, like I love to be like anonymous. Like I don't tell them like, hey, I'm Sugarloaf, I'm coming to your spot. Like, just show up and be a normal person and like maybe ask permission to fly the drone if need be. But yeah, it's been awesome. I mean, like, did that trip to Nebraska recently. Like we were in Maine a few summers ago, kind of unearthing some cool spots there. I guess the point is like this country is it's got so many cool different courses out there. You've got big fancy resorts, then you got little pitch and putts, you know, and they can all have their like virtue and value, I think, to the.
It is interesting. What I think it helps as well is, you know, I get frustrated sometimes with so many golf conversations when you talk to people. It's almost like a tit for tat. If you played this course, if you played that course, and again, yeah, it's the destination courses, the top 100 courses, and it's almost like it's your resume. And if you haven't played some course on the other side of the country, then somehow you're less of a golfer.
Like, oh, you haven't played Cypress Point? Like, who are you?
Right, exactly. And what some of it does is it all of a sudden makes you feel more prideful or give more respect to some of the local courses that even yourself may have not given. I'll give you an example.
Yep.
There was one I saw so growing up as a kid, my family, we used to go to Maine, and we used to go to, it was, I don't know if it's considered central Maine, but it's in the Rangeley Lakes region. Cool. We did 2-3 hours west of the coast. And right up from the town that we always used to go to, it's called Weld, Maine, on a little lake called Webb Lake. There was a 9-hole golf course up the street called Wilson Lake Country Club. It wasn't a country club. It was, you know, I can't remember what we paid, but it was probably $10 a round. But every summer, I played it a couple of times. I hadn't thought about that course in years until I was looking at your hidden gem map, and there it was. And it's there's some designer that I old school architect that I didn't know, but just the seeing on it there, all of a sudden I had this like, oh, I was playing the gem back in the day. I didn't even know it.
Yep. No, I mean that it's, you don't know what you, like as a kid, you don't like know what you have kind of at the time. Like even me growing up in Chicago, like that's one of the great golf cities in the country. I kind of just played the same few courses. Like I didn't really like venture outside of my like little neighborhood, you know, and it's funny how that, I mean, one of my favorite courses though is Ravislow Country Club, which was like the kind of neighboring country club, and that was this little Donald Ross course, and incredibly cool. But that's, you know, there's these kind of like pivotal points I think back to of like, okay, I grew up on Flossmoor Country Club, and everyone says Flossmoor is cool, and everyone's like Olympia Fields is the best course, but I kind of liked Ravislow, like, and that was like, as like a 11, 12-year-old, like that was kind of like a weird hot take in that town. So, turns out, you know, one of Annie Johnson's like favorite courses in the Chicagoland area too, and like, you know, wasn't wrong, but I think, you know, empowering people to like look back to the places they play with more pride, or finding something to be proud of at their current like goat track, I think is important.
Do you guys pay attention to, I don't need metrics or anything or numbers, but do you guys pay attention to, like, are people using that hidden gem map? Like, are you seeing the clicks and the website traffic that people are using it quite a bit?
I don't ever look at the website traffic, but like anecdotally, like people will be like, I just played all your hidden gems in Florida, or my wife and I, you know, just hit up those 3 or something. So like we get notes all the time that people use it. Yeah. And so that's pretty amazing. And like, we also get notes that like, it's kind of inspired people to get back into the game, or through Sugarloaf, they saw a guy with the Sugarloaf logo and they now have a new best friend sort of thing. Like this sort of, you know, bat signal, Sugarloaf logo, hidden gem map connections happen all the time.
Yeah. That's interesting. Another piece that, certainly on Instagram and social media, you guys, the hashtag player perish.
Yep.
And you put that a lot of swag and merch and stuff as well. But it derives from a passage in a book, The Links by Robert Hunter.
Yep.
which I finally just read not that long ago, within the past 6 months. When did you read that? How did you? Because it's that passage is towards the end of the book.
Yeah, it's like after the book has ended.
You could easily miss it.
Right.
And you've turned, and it's not, and he doesn't even say play or perish.
Right.
It's actually something slightly different, but you've turned that into, I don't even know what the word is, but
yeah, I think
people are tagging everything play or perish all over Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, like golf, like having like a motto for your like club or community. It's like that's nothing new. And so I was like, well, what's Sugarloaf like maxim gonna be? And yeah, that story is literally like, it's almost like after the final chapter in the links. And he's talking about this experience he had. Do you mind if I go into the story of the passage? So yeah, Robert Hunter is on holiday in Germany, and I think at the hotel he was staying at, there was, promise of a golf course in this hotel. And so he's like all pumped up. He's like, wow, I'm going to go on vacation. We're going to play some golf. This is great. Shows up at the hotel, and well, it's just like a little par 3 pitch and putt course. And he's like disappointed or let down or something. And he spends the next few days just kind of like sulking and pouting basically, until he's just kind of like bored enough to give it a try. And his takeaway was like, well, even a small course can be extremely thrilling. Like, if you play a 50-yard hole and then you go to a 110-yard hole, that 110-yard hole now feels long and exhilarating. And I think the point is like, there's great, passion and fabric to be found in golf, big or small. And he sort of said something to the effect like, one inoculated with the golf virus would rather like play than perish, basically. Right. Like, and so I was like, oh, play or perish, like this is something behind it. This has some meat behind it.
Sure. No, it's impressive how that's kind of taken off, and how followers and fans of Sugarloaf have really kind of got behind that phrase. But what I also found that interesting, like I'm not great at reading really old books. I have a lot of books. I'm not the most avid reader in the world, but I like looking at them. Yeah. But I read my takeaway from that book. I thought it was really impressive, but it's written in the 20s, I think, or early 30s.
Yep.
And the amount of topics that, if you didn't know when it was written, could have been written last year.
Yeah, if I told you that was Jeff Shackelford's book from 3 years ago, you'd probably believe me.
I mean, there's several pages where he's talking about controlling ball distance.
Yep.
Which is something that's not...
If you look at like Mackenzie's books, and everyone is concerned about distance, like even 100 years ago, and it's wild that is still like a prolific topic like that.
Right.
And you're right, there are others in there as well that are like, course maintenance, or things are too hard for the average player, or pace of play stuff. And it feels very contemporary, even though it's a 100-year-old book.
Absolutely. And going to the architecture side of it, the fact that, through the, I don't even know what the stretch of time was, but like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, maybe 90s weren't considered necessarily the best time for golf course architecture, because, the artistry and design of the courses wasn't the priority. It was more, the developments around it and that sort of thing. That, if Tom Doak or somebody's writing a book on architecture today, it would read very similar the way that he was writing back then, which is it's fascinating.
Yeah, I encourage everyone, if they can find a copy of The Links by Robert Hunter, I know prices have kind of shot up, I think, in recent years, but...
USGA, I think, printed a whole bunch.
Oh, good,
so
good.
You can buy super cheap. I bought it for like $5.
Okay, excellent.
I don't have an original copy. I think those are worth a lot of money. Early on in this conversation, you said the word that I think some people, I don't know if it's considered a bad word or not, but you said influencer. Mm-hmm. You also mentioned a recent Nebraska trip that you went to. So I put those two things together because I would just based on I don't know you that well. This is the longest conversation we've ever had, but knowing well enough that I'm guessing you don't like that. You don't like to label yourself as an influencer. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, it's it sounds like a dirty word, basically. We, like, the reason why this is, like, pretty much some of the only press we've ever done, like, we're inherently shy. We want the brands that we work for and our own brand to speak for itself, and we're kind of behind the scenes sort of guys, and so I'm really reluctant for there ever to be like a cult of personality around Sugarloaf. I want people to look at the brand and kind of find the best pieces that make sense for their life, rather than, oh, this is like Ian Gilly's like company sort of thing.
Sure. That being said,
yeah,
you went on a trip to Nebraska, and you mentioned some of the trips. I mean, you did like a hidden gem scouting trip to the Adirondacks and going up to Maine. But the one I want to talk about is one you just did recently to Nebraska.
Yep.
Because you did kind of, how many courses did you do?
I think it was like 9 or something.
And like
played 7 , saw 9, something like that.
4 or 5 days.
Yeah. It was like 2.5 days basically.
And you did long form writing.
Yep.
In Instagram within the captions.
Yep.
But it was really well done. Nebraska, is probably not on anybody's, what wasn't on anybody's short list of necessarily golf destination. There's the Sandhills and Landman's getting ready to open next year. However, the courses that you visited, I didn't know. I don't think I knew any of them, to be honest with you. And I think a lot of people, unless they grew up or been in Nebraska quite a bit, most people didn't know these courses. The pictures that you took, the descriptions of them, I imagine there was some golf trips booked after that.
Definitely.
And if that's not influencing, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, no, it's we've had a positive influence on the game of golf. There's no doubt about that. And that trip came together in 3 days. So our son is about to turn 1. So this entire year, it's kind of been all about the baby.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Hindering golf trips to a degree. Combine that with the pandemic. So, come October, I'm like itching to do something, big. And I talked to my wife, and I'm like, when could I go for like a 3-day trip to Nebraska? I think Nebraska is like an untapped, like cool public golf state. And she was looking at the calendar, and she was like, well, this weekend. And I was like, oh my God. Okay. So I planned that trip in a few days, took a red eye into Denver, landed at midnight, stood in a car rental line for 3 hours. It was a horrible experience. Got a pickup truck. My first course, I'm supposed to be playing at 8 that next morning. I drive halfway, sleep in a truck stop, get up, drive the last 2 hours. Like, Nebraska is this crazy vast state. Have you ever been?
Never.
And so I'm flying into Denver, and I'm going to fly out of Omaha. So I'm traversing the entire state. And I go all north and south. Anyway, yeah, it was a cool experience. It was like a solo golf trip crammed into 3 days. And to your point about the Instagram posts, this is the first time we've ever kind of broken that third person, like we sort of, how we write the copy as like a group. And I was like, I'm on a solo trip. The only way to write this copy is from a first person perspective. So like I had to it was uncomfortable. I had to name myself and be like, I did this and I was here. But my goal with that project was like, what if I'm going to max out the words on Instagram allows 2,200 characters or something. And so
I didn't even realize there was a limit. I've never come close to that.
Whatever, I don't know, that times however many posts, it was a lot of writing. But it was just this cool I almost encourage people to consider a solo golf trip, it was really cathartic, and there are hour stretches between these courses, and Nebraska looks like the moon. I mean, it's just you could build 100,000 stream songs out there. It's unbelievable. Yeah. The landscape for golf. And yeah, it's just beautiful weather. I mean, I loved it. It was incredible.
One of the things I was getting at, I on a couple podcasts ago, I interviewed a gentleman named Andrew Sunyug, who was kind of, he started a sustainability consultancy here in DC, but he was talking about his history in golf, and at some point he was working for the state of New Mexico, and he talked about a stat that I can't remember if it was the Chamber of Commerce, but something through the state of New Mexico where a 1% increase in rounds in the state of New Mexico had this like really significant impact on the local economy.
Wow.
And when you get, and I'm just watching your Nebraska trip and seeing the interactions, and I mean, every time you post it, you know, tons of comments of people just like blown away by what they're seeing, and people haven't heard about this. You know, there's like, and you have an account with 37,000 followers or something. You know, you may have just impacted Nebraska's economy.
I never really thought about it like that, but you know, I think if Sugarloaf, like I do think of the holistic like golf economy, you know, kind of at the very end of like this 50-year Sugarloaf project. Like, if we've inspired one person to play one more round or to explore one more course, like those are like micro impacts into this greater golfing economy, and it adds up. I mean, it's like Instagram and golf are peanut butter and jelly. Like, it's a perfect marriage of social media and, you know, encouraging younger people who are now making a little more money to travel to places or to seek out cool spots or to fly halfway across the world, you know, to go to a place that they saw, you know, some other account post about. So, yeah, it's amazing.
Do you, I mean, what about some almost like some pointers or advice for other folks that are trying to kind of do something similar? And the reason I ask is you guys do things, you've already touched on a few of them, but things a bit differently. I mean, you really, aside from Player Parish, you don't really use hashtags. Instagram has the shop capability where you can like link your shop and tag your stuff. You guys have a wildly successful shop, but don't use that feature on Instagram.
Yep.
You're only really on one social media channel. I don't think you have a Twitter or Facebook or anything like that. Why the hell does that all work?
Yeah, it's funny because like some things we do for Sugarloaf is not what we might advise a client to do, you know. And so I think being a bit iconoclastic and just being ourselves and only doing things that we feel comfortable with, like being yourself, being original. I think if you stick to that, it's really hard. Everyone's looking for a silver bullet. Everyone's trying to copy what someone else did who seems successful. Like, you know, we played the long game, we played the hard game. We've left who knows how much money and opportunities on the table. And, you know, the payoff there is brand loyalty and something that feels much stickier than like a quick hit sort of, you know, opportunistic play.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's kind of the secret sauce is like, you got to do things the hard way, you know, and if that means foregoing, you know, financial opportunities or actual like, you know, opportunities, we've left a lot on the table and, you know, it's always kind of paid off for us in the long run. So that's kind of how we think of things.
Interesting. Let me ask a question about some of the merchandise again. Give me just a kind of a more fun question. Like,
Yeah.
Give me an example of something that you guys dropped that either outperformed what you thought or underperformed and underperformed.
Yeah.
Like was something that you released like, holy crap, that sold out way faster than we thought.
No, it's funny.
And vice versa.
Yeah, it's people ask this question like, what's your best-selling like product or something like that, and it's kind of too hard to say, you know, when there's a lot of like things that are just kind of selling out quickly. I would say like the stuff that surprises me is sometimes there's like really expensive stuff, like putter we did with TP Mills. It was like $1,000 or something, or a $1,300 leather Mackenzie golf bag. Like those have all worked. You know, I think some of the things that, you know, we've learned some lessons, like we did some white kids polos a couple of years ago. And, well, like white and kids doesn't really work very well. You know, like parents are kind of shy to maybe buy a stark white thing for their child. So, you know, we've tried a bunch of stuff. Most of it's worked. I mean, sometimes it comes down to like, we did some flip-flops 5 or 6 years ago, leather flip-flops, and like beautiful craftsmanship, really cool looking, but they're really uncomfortable. And so like that was a fail in my mind. If someone's like complaining, like they're giving their, you know, toes like a rash or something. And so usually, you know, there's clothing is like, when there's sizes involved, like there's gonna be misses from time to time. Like things just don't fit certain people well. So, I don't know if that totally answers your question, but
No. Do you see one of the? I think one of the first times we actually met was at I don't know how many years ago this was, but there was a pop up you did down near.
is that at Reedwall?
Maybe I didn't know
Up
the
in the
store.
shop,
It was near 930 Club.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. But so I'm getting it. But so you're doing some pop up kind of shops. Like, do you see yourselves kind of getting into brick and mortar retail kind of thing?
It would be really cool to get into to build out like a dream. Like, what does a Sugarloaf shop look like? Like, that would be awesome. I think the realities of the merchandise game are like, that's such an expensive monthly bite into your overall profits or incoming revenue. It almost seems like impossible unless there is some extreme rapid growth or investment.
Yeah.
Brick and mortar, I think like Sugarloaf, cool. We have like a bunch of like friends and people on the internet and like from all over. Bringing the internet and Instagram to real life is like the next step. And you're seeing that from a couple cool Instagram brands. Like Patrick Keegan's got his Field Day Social Club in Chicago. Like, he just built a brick and mortar store in his hometown in Illinois. Beautiful. There's like a barber and cool wares and whatnot. And Gimme Golf Club in St. Louis, they just built a indoor simulator shop, clubhouse, cool hang sort of thing. And it would be amazing to do something like that. We're just spread so thin with time, and I don't know how you make the rent work unless you look at like a really inexpensive market in some far off destination. But yeah, I think having like a little corner of somewhere would be awesome.
I mean, right now you're basically operating out of what do you call it, Sugar Shack?
Yeah, Sugar Shack. So we have
storage unit.
Yeah, there were days when my wife and I were shipping out of our sunroom, but now we have a 10 by 30 storage unit in Reston. That's, we decorate it and it looks kind of fun, and there's lights in there and stuff, but that's our warehouse and shipping apparatus. So, and that's like a pretty affordable monthly rent, I guess. But yeah, we've done some fun pop-up shops and hope to do some more of that for sure.
Very cool. No, I mean, it's especially since it's just the two of you guys, incredibly impressive, especially the fulfillment stuff. I can only imagine kind of the volume that you're going through based on what I see on the internet. But again, my foray into something similar, I would fall behind days at a time just trying to fulfill like 3 hats.
When it was like doable, when you're only dealing with 30 or 50 or 70, you can knock that out in a day or an afternoon or night, especially if you have no kid. My wife and I are just watching TV, can pack orders. This is many years ago. When it starts to get to significant numbers, and there's like, in our last drop, let's say, there were 7 colors of head covers, driver and fairway. So we're at 14 different SKUs, plus 2 colors in a hoodie with 4 sizes each. And you can see that go on and on and on, where there's like, you're picking and packing an order with like 4 or 5 things from all these. It just takes time, is basically what I'm saying. And so that's been a hole we've had to figure out how to plug. Is like, Ian cannot be spending 7 days straight like packing orders when there's like, I could be thinking about the next drop or helping with clients on other projects. So we are hiring someone to help with our fulfillment and logistics.
Seems like your time and talent is worth more than that.
It's been a real, like, what if I'm freed up from that, like, what happens to Sugarloaf? Like, that's an exciting idea. So, but I also like love packing. Like, I know it sounds silly, but like, you're like seeing these names come through and like grabbing this, and like, you just kind of know you're delivering these little bits of joy, like all over the world, really. Like, it's Australia, Japan, Great Britain. And that's like so cool to like be at that final touch point of sending these little, packages off into the world.
Yeah. I've seen that just obviously on a much smaller scale, but then you also, it's like you're taking somebody's Instagram handle and they become a real person.
Yep.
All of a sudden there's a name and an address and they're actually buying something, you can add a little note or throw in a couple, some extra stickers or teas or something.
It's awesome. It's really, yeah, it's it's fun, honestly. But you're right. I need that time back to do other things.
So I want to ask some questions just about golf in this area and DC and stuff like that. But since we're talking about the future of Sugarloaf, let me just ask that broad question. It's almost like an interview question when in a job or something like that, or a college application. Where is Sugarloaf Social Club in 5 years?
It is a good question, because there's no whiteboard or business plan that kind of says where do we want to be, because we still feel like young and we're figuring things out on the fly, and yeah, we've been successful, but there's so much more we want to do, in terms of gear and clothes and all that. I think getting deeper into custom, private label, and like our own design stuff from the ground up, like where we have some fleeces coming out where we, every little piece we picked and the way it fits and all the buttons and the tags. And so, becoming more grown up and professional and on that sort of like clothing side of things. Mm-hmm. I think we've always wanted to build a golf course. Like, that's no secret. And that's something we want to seriously start like getting into conversations about. My dream is, I think the DC market is totally like underserved for cool golf experiences. And there's a ton of wealth in the 4 counties that surround the city, as you know. So like, where is this area's like Dunes Club or Sweetens Cove, and Harrison and I love Virginia. We're very bullish on the state of Virginia. And it's kind of untapped in terms of like, why isn't the Shenandoah Valley like the Hudson Valley in New York, or so I think the way we see this area growing
from a tourism perspective or golf perspective or everything.
Both like we think there's going to be a great migration of wealth and creatives into these small Virginia towns that are still hanging on by a thread. As fiber and internet becomes more prolific in these small towns, the pandemic's taught us anything is like you can work from anywhere.
Sure.
So why not work?
Probably sped that up a bit.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of off track a little bit, but like I really think there's enough appetite in this area to support like a 9-hole, really well done overnight situation in the Shenandoah Valley or in the Blue Ridge Mountains. So that's kind of our co-dream. I think we have a bit of different opinion of where it should be. Like, I think it should be within like 90 miles of the center of DC, where Harrison definitely subscribed to the like, well, if you build a Sweetens Cove, like, I think they'll come, if you build a Bandon Dunes, people will be crazy enough to come all the way to see a cool golf course. So, yeah, I mean, that's what we want to do. I mean, ultimately, that's probably one of our big projects. And like, what's awesome about, I'm so excited to see, and it seems to be super successful, like Zach Blair's project in South Carolina. Like, if that proves anything, it's going to show like, here's someone, yes, he's a professional golfer, but has an Instagram personality, and now he's building a serious golf course venture, and he's not going to stop with just one course. So,
and he essentially raised, I mean, maybe I'm wrong on this, I haven't been following it that closely, but he essentially raised money for it through promoting it on Instagram.
That's probably part of it. To build we're not idiots. Like, to build a golf course, we need some serious pockets and some serious investment behind that. And
we also most people, real followers of Sugarloaf know this, and golf fanatics. But for those that don't, we didn't close the loop. The namesake course outside of Orlando is no longer with us.
It's not. That was a casualty of the recession. Florida was hit super hard back in 08, 09. And we don't really know the status of it. It's always, we can never really crack like who the current owner is or what's the status, like what's it going to be turned into. And, my parents live like just 5 miles down the road. We're going back for Christmas. Like, I'm definitely going to sneak over there again and see what's going on. But from what I understand, like, there's been no development on it, and it's a core Crenshaw course that's been lost. That's only 20 miles from the center of like a major city. Like it almost seems crazy. Like I think if Sugarloaf Mountain was just like in the right place at the wrong time. Like Instagram didn't exist. The Great Recession hits. If Sugarloaf Mountain was in danger of closing like today, like there would be a groundswell of Instagram support, almost like a campaign around like don't close Sugarloaf Mountain. Like we cannot lose a modern core Crenshaw course. Like there's only a handful of these in the world. Like that's a real shame.
I would imagine your mind has drifted. I mean, they just rebuilt the Lido in Wisconsin.
Yep.
You know,
if we could figure out a way,
Sugarloaf in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Yeah. It would be amazing if we could somehow figure out how to bring Sugarloaf Mountain back in Florida. Like that'd be an awesome project. But we also, I think we just like love Virginia so much. We want to see, a gift to the golfing world that is like uniquely like Virginian, I guess.
So let's talk about local golfer. This is Beltway Golfer. You are hidden gem experts, connoisseurs. What are some? There's the few that are on your map.
Yep.
East Potomac here is on your map.
Yep.
The Schoolhouse 9 is on your map.
Yep.
Vista Links.
Yes.
Which I bet you a lot of people have not been to.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit out of the way. Yeah. That's the one. My only time I played with Harrison, I met him for 9 at Vista Links.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
And enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, Vista Links, and he lives like right there, basically. The way we kind of came around to finding out about that course was, I'm a big like Google Earth guy. Like I spend so many hours like a week just like, because like you're bound to find golf courses that are kind of like off the map, just like Google Earth thing. Like, okay, there's a population center. It's bound to be some golf courses. Like you can kind of see green space from the satellites pretty easily. But yeah, we were Harrison and Aaron Rank, our other buddy. We were at Wintergreen for some reason, and we were looking for a place to play the next day. And they found this course on one side of the mountain, and I was like, saw this Vista Links thing, and I was like, this just looks cool. Like this, Google, gotta trust me. Like on the satellite image, it just looks interesting. So yeah, we made our way down there, played it. Our minds were blown because you've been there. It's not in the best shape by any stretch of the imagination, but it's like this. It's this anomaly because it's a municipal course. Modern course, but it's like a links course, but it's on the side of a mountain. And there's just incredible, beautiful vistas, really good architecture, and it's got
elevation change,
a lot of elevation,
a lot of really nice, mounding and all that.
And then it turns out we get like Tom Doak's Confidential Guide, one of the new ones, and I think it was for summer destinations, and he's listing like the top 5 munis in like the South region, and he lists Vista Links, and we're like, whoa, like this is on the Confidential Guide's radar. But yeah, it's a bit of a, probably an underfunded and mismanaged sort of course, but like, I think it's really cool. It's for off 81. I mean, it's, I've had really fun rounds there, I guess.
Do you think that you influenced Tom Doak on that?
I don't think so. I think it was just like, we couldn't believe we're seeing this random named course that we just thought was cool in this book. So, almost like validating that our sort of little discovery. But yeah, I mean, I know you were talking about like the triangle a little bit, like going down to Richmond. I really love Pendleton in this area. Like, I think if that's not on our map, it should be.
I think it is.
To me, that's like, I think the guy who did it was Gary Player's like architect, for the Player design firm. And it's like, it almost feels like a Strantz course.
There's a couple. I'm not going to remember which holes, but there's one green in particular on the front 9.
Yeah, like 7 or something.
Yeah, multiple levels where you can the hole can be behind you, and you can putt away from you, and it'll go down this long sweeping.
It's very like Tobacco Road in that.
Yeah.
Like and I think that one to me is like, there's a lot of like golden age talk on Sugarloaf, but like there's some cool like public modern stuff too, and I think that's one of them. And Vista Links, honestly. The other one I really like is in Afton, Virginia. It's called Swananoa Golf and Country Club. It's on top of a mountain. Like their motto's like, it's 10 degrees cooler up here, because it's like probably the highest course in Virginia.
I don't even know where that is.
It's cash
In Virginia.
only. You gotta go check. It's like 30 minutes west of Charlottesville, in Afton, and
Not that
it's
far.
It's the only place I've ever seen a bear in Virginia. Like and you're very much like in the Shenandoah Park. It's cool.
Nice. Swannanoa.
Swannanoa.
I've not
Yep.
been there. I'll have to
Yep.
check it out. You don't have it. I did notice this, that you don't have any courses on your hidden gym map in the state of Maryland. Although you just recently visited and had some really good things to say about a municipal course in, gosh, I think it's Anne Arundel County.
Eisenhower. Yep, we're definitely going to be adding that one. Really cool. It's Andrew Green, who's on this serious role with Congressional and Inverness. I know he's got a ton of other incredible projects too. Like somehow, some way, the county, Anne Arundel County, convinced him to redo their Eisenhower course, which I believe was an alt design. And he came in there and did something really interesting. He basically built them a modern championship golf course with no bunkers, with the theory being this is going to cut down your maintenance costs and it's going to cut down the pace of play and the frustration from the normal golfers. And there's still enough like architectural like substance out there where it's incredibly engaging and super interesting. Yeah, I love that place.
Yeah.
Have you played there yet?
I have. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's really cool. Changing gears, you have, based on things you've shared, have quite a fascination photography and cameras. I mean, obviously, Instagram is a platform for photos.
Definitely.
But certainly in the golf space, you've seemingly helped lead kind of an artistic path where you're using film more than anything.
Yeah, definitely got on a really hot obsession of I brought my film camera today. I don't consider myself like a professional photographer. There's a million other more talented people in the golf space with a camera. I do love gear, and I love thinking about, what is the possibilities of this lens going to do compared to that lens and this camera body. And, and film is totally fascinating because it's this little mystery box. Like you don't know what you're getting, right? And there's a lot more like kind of thoughtful, purposeful inputs that go into taking a photo with a film camera. I do love photography, and I want to get better, and think there's opportunities to hone that craft even further. Film, it's an expensive obsession because it's like $12 a roll, and you gotta get developed, and it's not economical, but it's a beautiful thing that comes back. You get this surprise, weeks after it comes back from the lab, and you're like, oh wow, yeah, that's pretty cool.
You got any favorites or advice if somebody's listening to this that wants kind of, I don't know, an entry level film camera that'd be good for a golf course?
Yeah, I would say any SLR from contacts to is that messing up the audio maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I should be fine, but
Oh boy,
might be the president going.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, yep, 3 of them. That's definitely the president.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's anything that kind of looks like that, because film cameras have gotten way more expensive in recent years. So, yeah, anyone can hit me up if they need advice, and I can point them in the right direction. But just a basic, everyday SLR will do you just fine.
The challenging I've found with some of them is that they're, can be heavy.
Heavy. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And you better be ready for, understanding light and metering and zone focusing, or, if it's a rangefinder of, matching a focus patch together. I think that's what I've enjoyed so much about it, is just like continuing to challenge ourselves. And like, once I get bored of that, we'll go on to something else. Like I got recently really into like, how can I get a camera that's like as small as possible? Like you're lugging around a camera on a golf course, you're not totally present for that round. And that's kind of been this like duality of like Sugarloaf that's always bugged me. It's like, well, like I'm here because I love golf and I want to play with my friends and talk to them, but like I also feel a pressure to take photos, to talk about it later on Instagram, and that's kind of like, those are like at odds with each other. Like you can't do both great. And so I recently bought a super tiny Ricoh crop sensor, like a street photography camera that can fit in your pocket, because I'm like, okay, well, this is going to like eliminate some of that sort of distraction of like a big, full frame, 65 millimeter lens that kind of can take away from being like present and like enjoying that like experience of playing golf with your friends.
Have you had much, and this is kind of be a good transition to, I think, our last topic, but had you get, my experience following golf courses, I mean, I follow most of the local golf courses, is they're pretty bad at social media. They're not great at PR and marketing themselves in general, I've found. Do you get courses reaching out to you saying, can you help us out?
Sometimes if they know we were there and had some cool photos, they'll ask to have the photos to use on their website or Instagram. I mean, it's social media. Like, we honestly don't do the daily management for clients anymore on social media, because it's really hard to do it well. Like, you have to have someone there who's on the ground, being present, always mindful of like cool things to take pictures of or stories to tell. So it doesn't surprise me that golf courses like suck at it, because they got to worry about the maintenance and the pro shop and the food and beverage, and like it's the last thing on their mind, sort of thing. And it, it is a little sad that some really cool places like country clubs especially have like horrible Instagrams too. Like, lobster night this Thursday, that post stays up there for years. It's like, what is going on here?
And they're posting just stock photos.
Yeah.
But there's also, do you experience at all? I'm just keep going off on tangents here, but I experienced this a little bit. Is I either I haven't gotten out of course or I haven't gotten a good picture, and I end up not posting in a while because I don't have anything good. I don't have any good pictures.
Yeah, I think like
I don't want to go backwards. I want to be better than the last one I did, or whatever.
Like, I tell people, if you don't have anything to say, or like, just don't. Like, there are months. Like, Sugarloaf will go 5 weeks without posting. You know what I mean? Like, that's fine. And like, never force it. Like, I don't scrape the barrel looking for an old picture that, I don't know. You just gotta trust your instincts. I feel like that's like what we've done pretty well. It's
For folks that aren't really, diehard Sugarloaf followers, you guys have created and done work for Pebble Beach, Pinehurst. We haven't brought it up, and I understand that we're not allowed to discuss it too in depth, but, one of the most famous golf courses on the planet in Augusta, Georgia.
Yep.
Everybody knows who that is. You're doing work for these firms, so they're paying attention. You mentioned that Pinehurst reached out to you. Is that right?
Yep.
So let me just pause there. How did that happen?
Yeah, Pinehurst. The leadership at Pinehurst is unparalleled, I think, in the golf space, led by Tom Pashley. You've seen how that resort's kind of evolved over the past 5, 6, 10 years with the Cradle and all the efforts they've done to make the place seem more approachable and youthful and family friendly, women friendly, and they saw Sugarloaf as part of that kind of up and coming group of people who had something special and just wanted to. That relationship was like, we're going to do a collaboration with Sugarloaf and do some co-branded stuff in the pro shop. And then it quickly turned into like helping with other projects like Number 4's branding.
But is that because somebody there just happened to be following you and understood the impact that you have on
Definitely. I would say
a certain space and generation and everything?
Every marketing director at every big fancy course and resort is on Instagram, like seeing what's going on. Like they can.
So that's kind of my last topic.
Yeah.
Is kind of where does this all head? And so we talked about Sugarloaf's future, but what about just kind of golf in general? And my question being like, from a merchandise, not necessarily from a golf course perspective, we've talked about that a lot, but like, from branding, merchandise, social media, Instagram, like where is this all going? Where's that landscape in 5 years?
Yeah, it's a That's kind of a big question for sure. I mean, I know we kind of touched on this already, but like, I think what we're seeing in the golf shift, these big resorts building the par 3 courses, like that's kind of like a huge signal that like something's changing where, you know, golf doesn't necessarily have to be 18 holes on 7,000 yards, whatever. We can offer these other products that are, you know, more welcoming to kids or fun for after your round, or can have an 8-some with no problem. I think that, you know, that sort of golf course, like taste, tempo has shifted crazy fast. Like 10 years ago, like a par 3 course is like a gimmick, you know, or Sweetens Cove was hanging on by a thread, and now it's like the most desirable kind of place to put your stamp on. In terms of how does Instagram, you know, I think there's some concern, like with all of these new brands that pop up every day, you know, when a Pebble Beach does go on Instagram, is like decides who to work with, like it's kind of becoming a very cluttered space. And so, you know, who knows? I have no idea what 5 years from now looks like. I don't think Instagram will exist like in 5 years, to be honest. Like it's already probably trending, you know, like what's post Instagram, I think is like almost the better question. Like, does Sugarloaf get into more printed materials, or do we start breaking ground on a golf course in 5 years? You know, I think I think there will be some brands that probably get, you know, what little brands does Adidas Golf buy next year? You know, like, does that happen? Or, you know, can Sugarloaf sponsor a tour player per se? Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really answer your question really well.
No,
but
it's an impossible question to answer. Is the reality.
Yeah, I do think there's been some incredibly positive shifts in like golf course attitudes and appetites for different sort of products, from, you know, doing your traditional 4-course resort thing to going all the way to Tennessee to play a 9-hole course in the middle of nowhere, basically. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty amazing that those things can like live like on the same plane, like in harmony. And so I think, you know, what I hope to see more of are like the Rob Collins and McCartans of the world do like affordable, architecturally interesting things in urban and dense areas. And like National Links Trust is gonna be a 10-year project, but that's kind of like what they're going to deliver, a really unique, you know, Rock Creek, a unique product that's different than what's here as a reversible course, and then the history of Langston kind of coming back to life with a really beautiful golf course. And yeah, I think there's like an open-mindedness to like different types of golf, basically.
Sure. Last question.
Yeah.
When Ian Gilly is driving from course to course on the long roads by yourself in Nebraska,
yeah,
what podcasts are you listening to?
Oh man, definitely. There's a lot of podcasts and music. The podcasts, like, I'm pretty much,
or music.
Yeah. You know, anything coming out of the Bill Simmons universe, I'm pretty much here for. But, you know, every day catch the Daily, like when Freakonomics drops a podcast, all over that. Indicator, Planet Money. You know, I was an econ major and spent time on Capitol Hill, so I'm not an expert in either of those fields, but I kind of like see, you know, the holisticness between like the consumer mind and economics and political thinking. And so that's kind of, and then pop culture, that's where I spend a lot of my podcast time. Music, I'm all over the place. Like, it might be pop punk to screamo to EDM to rap. I mean, it's all over. So, but yeah, usually
we're showing our age gap. I don't know what is screamo. I don't even know what that is.
You don't want to know. It's stuff your parents wouldn't like. But you know, when you're like, you need heavy black coffee and some really loud music to get you through the last 30 minutes of a 4-hour drive. So,
all right. Well, I think we've covered a lot here, Ian. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much for. I know you don't take a lot of press but so coming on the Beltway Golfer podcast, your hometown podcast. I appreciate it very much.
Let's do another one.
Absolutely, it's a lot of fun.
Thank you.
I don't have a good golf game, but I don't really care. I'm a regular dude living in D.C., and I want to know about DC-centric golf stuff. If you can tell me something that I don't already know, then that is great for me. I don't want the regular stuff. I want exciting stuff. I want different stuff. I want stuff I can't hear elsewhere. But I want it to be about DC golf.